Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Joe Ballard, Vice President here with Social Media Breakfast Madison. And thank you so much for your attendance here, both in person and online. As you know, Social Media Breakfast, we are focused here on social media and all things digital marketing with presentations, panel discussions, and case studies. Sorry. It's not working. Oh, green light. There we go. That's louder. So yes, thank you so much for coming out. We like to bring everybody out every third Wednesday of the month for networking, coffee, breakfast, and some great educational opportunities surrounding digital marketing. To keep everything going, we are looking for more board members. We offer opportunities to learn more with the group from a great group of people. We're looking for a board secretary, Facebook group admin, day events, and volunteer coordination. If you are interested at all, please go to SMB Mad, the Join Our Team option. We'd like to take a moment to welcome our newest board member, Keith Gilmore. Thank you. Keith has 18 years of marketing and sales experience. He brings his positive energy, passion for clarity, and dose of sarcasm to each and every meeting. He's fantastic to have with us. He's a California transplant, devoted husband and father, and we are absolutely thrilled to have him. So yeah, please welcome Keith. I'd like to thank our sponsors. We couldn't do this without you. Dream Bank, of course, our wonderful event sponsor here, as well as all our creative and in-kind sponsors. I'd like to take a second to give Andy a chance to speak more about Dream Bank.
Thanks so much, Joe, and good morning, everyone. As Joe mentioned, my name is Andy Frisky. I work here at Dream Bank. Nice group of folks in here today. Anyone's first time in the space? Show of hands. All right, we got some folks. Awesome. Well, welcome, everyone. So Dream Bank is a free community resource that's put on by American Family Insurance, and everything we do here ladders up towards the inspiration and pursuit of dreams, in large part by helping to remove obstacles and barriers along the way. So how that shakes out, I'd say, is threefold, the largest being the events that we host. So we host anywhere between 6 to 15 free events a month that are all organized through the lens of personal and professional development. I hit up a lot of our business programming, so anything that's tactic focused, such as how do I generate more leads via Facebook ads, all the way to incorporating frameworks or broader ideas into small businesses and your entrepreneurial ecosystems. In addition to business events, we also have a lot of events that are really meant to, again, uncover or help remove some of those specific obstacles and barriers in one's dream pursuit. Whether it's a lack of time, discovering resources, things of that nature. We partner with a lot of various subject matter experts to come in and speak on those topics as well. In addition to the programming that we offer, we also function as a drop-in co-working space. So I know many of you have utilized this space. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly encourage you to do so. It's right along the blue wall right there with our content calendar for the month. But where you see those red tables and chairs and kind of the nooks and crannies, that's our co-working space. So our hours of operation are Tuesday through Thursday, 9 to 5. You're always able to welcome to come in during our operating hours and post up and have a quiet place to work. Really meant to embody kind of a third space terminology or belief. So I live on the west side, you live on the east side, looking kind of for that central location. It's exactly what this space is meant to be utilized for. In addition to our co-working space, we also have a very robust and interactive exhibit on site. They're always rooted in positive psychology, meant to embody some of the beliefs and values of the organization. The theme with this one is build your dream. So a lot of really cool and unique design thinking concepts and principles as they pertain to dream pursuit. So when we think about, for example, the gap analysis, I know where I'm at right now. I know ultimately where I want to be. How do I kind of bridge the gap? A lot of wonderful stationary items that are meant to be taken home and worked on, both for kids and adults alike. So really encourage you all to check that out as well. Lastly, when we're not utilizing the space here, we offer it up to community members to utilize free of charge as well too. So whether you sit on an advisory board, maybe you're just looking for an offsite with your team to get out of the office, you can reach out to me or any of my team members here, and we'd be happy to look at our calendar and see if there's an opening. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it back to Joe.
Thank you, Andy. Every month we do like to feature a nonprofit. This month we do have the Wanna Keep Food for Kids. They do a great job of making a powerful impact on food insecurity within the community. Every year they do a annual food packing, meal packing event. This upcoming one is October 11th, and they're approaching doing 5 million meals distributed locally and globally. So make sure you check them out on Facebook and their website. Next month, we do have Egan Heath coming back on June 17th to be talking about Google ad tips for social media or for small business owners. So absolutely something to put on your calendar. Egan is always great and should be definitely a great topic to learn about. We are excited to offer this month a giveaway for Ethical Trade Company. They're a fair trade company here in Madison. And Genevieve, I actually need a winner for this month. Could you please select? We forgot to get this ready beforehand. Sorry. So one of you lucky people will be walking away with a gift card to Ethical Trade Company. Who's it? One moment here. Jaya. All right, here you are. Thank you. All right, make sure you check out Ethical Trade Company, everybody. Okay, and make sure to follow us on social media. We're always looking for people to come out and help us out. Look for volunteers. If you're looking for sponsors for to help promote this and your business here to our great audience. Local shout outs to nonprofits, or if you're looking to become a speaker, we'd love to have you let us know. So please check out our website and let us know you're interested. You can follow us on all of our social medias, sign up for our newsletter, stay in touch. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Steve Robinson. He's a highly sought after speaker and podcaster, co-founder at Path3, speaker, marketing futurist, and consultant. We are incredibly excited to have him here. So let's put our hands together for Steve Robinson. This one is for the room.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. So today we're talking about getting mentioned by AI. I'm going to start out by talking about something entirely different. They say diamonds are a girl's best friend, but in the case of my lovely wife, Kim, it's a different sort of ice. See, to Kim, water is not worth drinking if it isn't loaded to the brim with cubes of ice. So when the ice maker on our refrigerator broke, it was an opportunity for me to show her exactly how much I love her and get that fixed right away. But the part cost more than the fridge was worth. So suddenly I'm in market for a new refrigerator. So today we're going to talk about how AI came to recommend this lovely Frigidaire model right here. So I don't know how familiar all of you are with how AI works, so I'm going to go through a little bit of what might be review, but it'll level set and get us all on the same page. I also have a ton of material to cover today, too much. I'm going to talk too fast. I'm going to go a little bit too fast, and so I apologize, but I want to get everything in. If you're not familiar with how AI works under the hood, when you work with a ChatGPT or a Claude or a Gemini, it is a prediction engine. You are typing a prompt into the machine, and the machine is taking a look at this text and predicting what are the next most likely words to come out. And based on those next most likely words, that's the response you get. And that's basically how it worked when it first came on the scenes. It was nothing more than predicting the next set of words. That didn't work so great in certain contexts. Who here remembers the whole thing about Google Gemini recommending that we eat 5 rocks a day? Yeah. So AI has evolved. And this evolution is really important when we look at how do we get our products and services recommended, because a lot of the advice that's out there on the internet today is wrong. In modern AI, if I type a prompt in, the machine is going to do a lot of work. This is some of that work that Gemini does. with that question of what refrigerator would you recommend for a family of 5? This is the work that Claude would do. ChatGPT is a little different. It has an adaptive engine where it will do the minimum amount of work needed in order to answer your question. So at least when I did it to prepare for this presentation, when I asked ChatGPT, what would you recommend for a refrigerator for a family of 5? It came back and gave me a whole bunch of tips on how to select a refrigerator for a family of 5. And I'm like, that's not what I asked you. But if you turn on thinking mode, it actually does the work. And also, if you ask it a question and a follow-up question and really push it a little bit, it'll give in and go do the work. So you know it's doing the work because it'll give you citations. Claude and Gemini actually kind of give you a little overview of the work they did. ChatGPT, it's all black box. We'll take care of that. Don't worry about it. But if it gives you citations, it did some extra work. So what am I talking about this work? Well, the first thing that modern AI does is it does something called reasoning. But it's not actually reasoning. It does not actually think. And I'm going to mistakenly talk about AI in terms of some kind of sentience or personality, like it's a person. It's just easier to explain it that way. But under the hood, it's still a computer program. What it does instead of thinking is it talks to itself. And so you put in a prompt, what is the best refrigerator for a family of 5? And instead of predicting the next most likely word to answer your question, it predicts the next most likely word to answer a different question. And that question is, how do I answer this question? And so this reasoning model goes and talks to itself and comes up with a plan to address your prompt. This is how we get out of recommending people eat 5 rocks a day. But that's not the only thing that modern AI does that's different from our eating 5 rocks a day era. It knows its limitations, or at least the programmers behind it know its limitations. And so if you ask a very specific question, or if you ask a very timely question, or you ask a question that requires math or complex logic, it will pull in tools. The most common of these tools in the context of whether it will recommend or not recommend your product or service is a web search tool. Modern AI will go search the web and pull in relevant information into the context before it gives you an answer. So this means that the common advice out there that your goal is to get into the training data, get into the model, is flawed. That was true in 2024 and the first half of 2025. But in 2026, the reality is the model is probably not going to recommend your brand without engaging with a tool, the most common of which would be web search. So if you succeed in organic SEO, you will get most of the way there in getting recommended by an AI. I mentioned the word context. I'm going to introduce a vocabulary term here called a context window. In an LLM, a large language model, which is the engine behind ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, everything that occurs prior to your prompt is the context window. That's the fodder that it's working with in order to predict the next word. That context window includes what you typed into it, what it typed back. So if you have a dialogue, all of that dialogue going backwards is included in that context window. What it typed to itself as it's working through its reasoning model. what it typed into a tool like a search engine, and the information it got back. So when AI recommends a brand, what it's actually doing is it's taking everything in that context window and simply predicting the next most likely set of words to come out of its mouth. You tracking? All right. Now, this is not how I found a refrigerator. This is not a very descriptive prompt. And I know enough about AI to know that I'm going to get a much better result if I give it more information. So what I actually typed was closer to this, but then I also shrunk it way down just to make it fit on a slide. This is a lot more context for the AI to figure out what to recommend. And it's a lot more context than I would type into a Google search. So while I said winning with organic search gets you most of the way there in winning with product recommendations in AI, there is a subtle distinction in that when I'm optimizing for organic search, I'm optimizing for relatively low context searches. Best refrigerator for a large family is a low context search. I've given it refrigerator and I've given it big family, and that's about it. But when I ask, help me find the best refrigerator for our family, there are 5 of us, blah, 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 blah. That's a high context search. So it has a lot more information to go out to the web to go and retrieve relevant information to put into that context window. I have talked about AI predicting the next word. That's an oversimplification. So bear with me while we get into the weeds a little bit here about how AI works. You're going to come out of here knowing more than you ever thought you needed to know about AI, which is great. AI doesn't actually process words. AI processes ideas. And you might think that it's a computer software. How does it process ideas? That's not ones and zeros. Well, it converts the ideas into numbers. And it does that by positioning them in a physical space. I'm going to have all of you do some processing of ideas into numbers in a physical space. So I want you to all stand up. This includes you on the live stream. If you're at home, stand up now, please. I want you to hold out your hand. I am going to put a series of vehicles up on the screen. If the vehicle I put up on the screen is small, you're going to bring your hand over to the left. If the vehicle that I put up on the screen is big, you're going to bring your hand over to the right. Okay? Small, big. Let's go. All right? Now we're going to make it a little bit more complicated. If the vehicle is fun, I want you to go up. And if the vehicle is boring, I want you to go down. Okay? What do we got? How about this one? This one? Kind of biggish and fun, right? Right? This one? So you get the idea. You can sit down now. When you get home tonight, you can tell your family you just did multi-dimensional vector encoding. They will be impressed. When we were doing big or small, we were taking the idea of that vehicle and encoding it in one dimension. When we did big, small, boring, and fun, we took the idea of that vehicle and encoded it in 2 dimensions. Modern AI encodes ideas in 1,536 dimensions. kind of at a minimum. Some of them are overachievers. I can't think in 1,536 dimensions. So it's taking each one of the ideas that you put into your prompt, and each one of the ideas that come back out of web search, and each one of the ideas that it comes up with as it's talking to itself, and it's positioning them in space, in a 1,536 dimensional space, but in space. And so what this means is that as marketers, we're trying to position our products and services at the same point in that 1,536 dimensional space as the prompt. So my prompt over here is a family-sized capacity, or my prompt over here asked for a refrigerator for our family, and I said volume is key, because my wife likes to make sure that we have plenty of groceries, which is great, just means there's never room in the fridge. So it went and searched the web, and one of the things it read was Whirlpool's official website, and it says family-sized capacity right there in the description for this refrigerator. Ice maker, key, covered that, right? Large ice production makes over 3 pounds, perfect. Same thing, it encoded the ideas and then pattern matched. The distinction between optimizing for search, for web search, and optimizing for AI really comes down to the fact this is a two-dimensional search. We said we have refrigerator and we have family. I don't know how many dimensions AI came up with based on the prompt there, but probably around 150. And so it's able to pattern match a lot better and find a refrigerator positioned to exactly my prompt. This results in a difference in the traffic that comes to your site. And so traffic that comes from AI is generally much more qualified. It's been really well aligned to your position versus the traffic that comes from search engines because of the depth of that query. And this isn't universally true, but there have been enough studies to prove it. And I did flip through all of the clients that I have access to in GA4 to go and validate this. One study from Sear Interactive from last year showed that, at least in a B2B context, AI traffic was between 1.7 and 9 times more likely to convert. In e-commerce, you see similar patterns. This one's from SimilarWeb, and they estimated it to be 2.15 times more likely to convert. If you read the literature online, they will talk about how this is more true for higher priced products and services. That makes sense. You're going to be a little bit more selective about where you buy a higher priced product or service. Anecdotally, and I couldn't really run the numbers because we didn't have adequate traffic from AI for most of our properties, and I'll get into why in a moment. But anecdotally, I found that higher tech, our SaaS clients, this was more true for than lower tech, industrial, and like commodity equipment. Yep. And then it was also more true for brands that had a clearer position. So the stronger your positioning, the more you pull yourself away from the average in who you're for and why you're special, the more likely AI is going to recommend you for reasons that resonate with your audience. And that's going to drive them to come to you and purchase. Now, I mentioned there's not a lot of data in the sites that I looked at from among our client set. You might say, well, why the hell are you up here talking to us about it if you're not able to drive a whole bunch of AI traffic? And the answer is twofold. One, not all of the recommendations from AI come in through a click. Matter of fact, most of them don't. A lot of times AI will recommend a brand or even a product name, but not give you a link to click on it, or it's hidden behind that little plus sign and some weird symbol. Like, you have to know how to do that, and most people don't yet. Yeah, or it's wrong. It's taking you to some other website, it's someplace else. So what do you do then? Well, you hop over to Google and you search for the brand or the product, right? You copy and paste that thing into Google. And so, let me jump to this myth and then I'll get to my next point here. But when you read a lot of the literature out there, it talks about making sure that AI sees your product or service as the most prevalent or the best option in your category. The reality is, because it's doing that positioning in space, you're trying to be the most relevant to your ideal audience. You're trying to be the provider of ice cream for teenage girls with ponytails and purple shirts. A reference that'll make no sense out of context. All right. I'll get back to the search point in a moment. I want to introduce a couple more concepts. Who here has seen the toggle or the setting inside of their AI to turn on or off memory? Yeah, we get like 4 or 5 hands. It's buried. It's on by default, at least in most of these tools. So what this means is that your Gemini, your ChatGPT, your Claude, they're keeping track of your dialogue with them, and it's remembering key things about you. So in the case of me, it probably thought that I was frugal, right? I'd searched how to fix the refrigerator previously. I'd given it a whole lot of fodder that would indicate that I'd rather not spend money I don't need to. That is included in the context window. So that takes our 150 dimensions and makes it more like 300 dimensions. Now all of a sudden, AI is looking a lot more precise than SEO. So the better you position your product or service, the better you're going to do in getting recommended by an AI. One of the things that the AI researchers came across pretty early in their journey was that always picking the next most likely idea or word doesn't work. You can't always pick the next most likely word. Sometimes you've got to change things up. And the reason you have to change things up is twofold. One, if you don't, everything sounds like it was written by AI. Two, it lacks any sort of human element to it. It just feels uncreative and robotic, and it doesn't work for idea generation or brainstorming or problem solving, which is how a lot of us like to use these tools. But if you introduce some randomness, the technical term is temperature, but I like to call it chaos monkeys. If you introduce some chaos monkeys into the machine, going and swapping out this idea for something that was 2 or 3 places down, now all of a sudden you've got some creativity in the system. So AI isn't always going for the next most likely word. It's often substituting in its reasoning with itself, in the output that it's providing you, in the output that it's providing your customers, with something that is slightly less than the next most likely idea or word.
So are you saying that in that example, we should include the word crazy dispenser eyes or eyes? Like to throw it to make it think different, we should include the word crazy, or I am not following what you're saying?
No, I'll get to why this is important in a moment, but you raise an interesting point. When the chaos monkeys are swapping this stuff out, they're swapping out for things that are close in that same position in space, like we did with our hands. So it's like synonyms or close synonyms or ideas that are very relevant but not quite there. Modern AI and modern web search both take care of translating words to ideas, pattern matching the ideas, and then coming back and translating it back into words. We as marketers don't have to do that anymore. It's not back in the day of SEO, of keyword stuffing and trying to make sure we have exactly the right keywords that people are typing into the engines. Because the tools understand that now. They think in terms of ideas, not words. For traditional search, this is where the shift came from keywords to topics, if you've heard that phrase. So for AI, we don't have to do this. We don't have to go and find 6 different ways of mentioning it. Matter of fact, it's probably more important we're consistent in how we position our products and services so the AI knows where our products and services are in space. Where this comes into play is it's another variable in the machine. And so when you're thinking about AI and you're thinking about measurement, measurement becomes hard because everybody is getting a different answer. In search, it's relatively consistent. I can track rankings for keywords in search and get relatively consistent answers, although Google personalization kind of killed that too. But at least it's a decent proxy for what other people are getting. In AI, we have variables in the prompts that are used. How long was it? What words did we use? And what was specifically important to that person when they were looking for a recommendation? Every one of you has very different tastes and preferences and needs and all of that. And all of that's going into the prompt now. Whereas with Google, you're typing a few words. Memory. All of you have had different experiences with your AIs up until this point. So all of your customers have had different experiences with their AIs up until this point. All of that's going into the context for the answers that it's giving. The search query that the AI used to go get more information from the web is going to be different. It's going to be different because the chaos monkeys messed with it. It's going to be different because of the prompt. And it's going to be different just because of variability in what search models return. So the search results are going to be different. So all of these variables are going into causing every one of your customers or potential customers to get a different recommendation when they type something into an AI. I love this quote. Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Now, it's not from Albert Einstein. It's misquoted all the time. But I love the quote. When it comes to AI recommendations and surfacing your brand in AI, that counts. As of today, it can't reliably be counted. So when you talk about snake oil, there are a lot of vendors out there selling solutions to measure your prevalence in AI. They use a lot of different terms for it. Unless you are Ford or McDonald's, you probably don't have enough signal in that noise to be able to get value from a lot of those metrics. Now, that's different from some of the search metrics about AI overviews. Like, ignore that. Put that aside right now. We're talking about ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Google Search AI mode, or Claude. The metrics that you get are just not there. So the myth is you can and should be measuring how often AI is recommending your product or service. The reality is anything that you ask the tool is going to produce as much noise and variability in both what you get back as whether it's recommending you or not, and what your customers, prospective customers, are getting back when they're interacting with these tools. There's just too many variables today. So what do you do instead? Well, I mentioned measuring referral traffic. And that's actually a pretty good proxy or understanding of how well AI understands you and is driving traffic to your site, because you actually get two metrics out of it. One, you get how much referral traffic am I getting, which is a small percentage of the times that AI is recommending your product or service or blog post. But two, you also get a signal on how aligned its recommendation is with your product or service, because you can see what the conversion rate is on that traffic. Google announced just this week or last week that they're introducing a new channel group inside of Google Analytics that you can track traffic from these tools. So it's incredibly easy to go in there and say, tell me what my conversion rate is for AI compared to my conversion rate for organic search. The only challenge is the volume of data. As I said, I went through our client base, and most of them don't have enough data to make it remotely statistically significant. You say, well, I thought I heard that AI was eating search. Like, that's what everybody is saying, that SEO is dead and everybody's going to be using these tools, and I need to forget everything I know about SEO and focus on AIO, GIO, and all the other 50 acronyms that I just didn't want to put in the presentation. That's not true. At best, AI is augmenting search, and at worst, it's taken a very small chink out of it. And what I think is happening is that AI is actually, at this point in time, driving more web search, because it recommends things and brings up topics that then you want to do a deep dive on, and you want to go read what other people have actually said about it, not what the AI told you. And so what we see here is that traditional search as a percentage of all the search activity on the web has dropped maybe 2% in a year. And in reality, it's flat. There's just that much more search activity going on. Traditional search is far, far from dead. So myth number 4 is that AI is replacing traditional search and you need to be optimizing for it and not search. The reality is most brands are not seeing a drop at all in search traffic. Some of them are seeing it go up. And AI complements search. It does not replace it. Is it another vector to be discovered? Absolutely. It is another place for your brand, your products, your services to be discovered. But it is not a replacement for being found when people type shorter search phrases into search engines. The other thing to keep in mind is your AI traffic will always be less than search. I can't say always, for the next few years, because technology changes. But for the next few years, AI will be less than organic search. And that's going to happen because it doesn't always produce a link. And people aren't using it to replace search. But when it does drive traffic, that traffic should be more qualified. And if it's not, it means that you have a positioning problem and you have an opportunity to improve your positioning of your products and services and clearly indicate why those products and services are special and what people need to know about it before they get to your site, because then AI will better inform those customers before they get there. All right, we're going to go end to end on my refrigerator journey here. This will be a little bit of review, but I'm also going to set up the next topic. I type into AI tool of my choice, help me find the refrigerator. I give it lots of context. It does its reasoning self-talk bit. How am I going to solve Steve's problem? It's going to do some sort of a web search. Now, if Frigidaire's website is going to come up in that web search, it means that the bot, and I'm not going to say Google bot because most of these aren't using Google's index. They're using a clone or a lookalike of Google's index. Works the same way, just not Google's. If it's Gemini, it's using Google's index, but everyone else, they don't get access to that. So in order for Frigidaire's website to come up, a bot has to have visited Frigidaire's website and scanned it already, figured out all the ideas in it, and put those in an index. So it's going to read the search results, and if something there is worth digging into, it's going to read that web page. Then it's going to do a much more reasoning self-talk. It might do this loop 2 or 3 times. It's going to match everything in the context window against all the potential solutions in the context window. And it's going to give me a recommendation. And in the end, the Frigidaire model was the one that it recommended. Now, I want to point out something here. There are 2 points in here where there's a bot reading your website. In organic search, there's just 1. But when we get to AI, there's 2 opportunities for you to screw up. So how do you get the bot to understand what's on your site? We talked about vector encoding. That was the taking the words and turning them into numbers, the ideas and turning them into numbers. When it goes to do that on your website, the first thing it has to do is chunk the information. It has to put it into buckets and say, this, I need to find the idea for this part. I need to find the idea for this part. I need to find the idea for this part. And so the best thing you can do, and DreamBank did this, is put nice headings and short sections on your content, particularly on your product and service pages. Because that way the AI can take each one of those ideas and chunk it individually and understand what that particular thing is about. I mentioned that these don't use the Google index, and I don't think Gemini uses its search index all the time either. I think it has its own index for some of this as well. But I want you to bluff. And I don't mean lie, but bluff is an acronym for bottom line up front. And the reason is the bots that do this indexing and the bot that goes and visits your website isn't always reading the whole page. Especially the one that's going to read your site from the tool live, it's only going to take the first so many characters. So you need the core idea, the core positioning of your product or service, the core idea of the blog post, the core idea of whatever it is in those first few characters. Because it's ignoring everything from a point down.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Would you say that because Gemini is a product made by Google, would be a better tool to find whatever Google has as a web search versus ChatGPT or Cloud?
I mean, in the rankings for how these tools are performing, Google and Gemini have been incrementally getting better and better and better, but it is an arms race, and all of them are investing really heavily right now. So I would say that you might want to look at how these tools are reasoning about your product space a little bit. But again, you're not trying to track how well it's performing by typing things into the tools, because your experience is going to vary wildly from everybody else's, even if you don't have memory on. And B, it's constantly changing. So any one tool is going to be different 6 months from now or 3 months from now when the next model and the next change comes out. So yes, Gemini has the advantage of having Google's indexes at its disposal when it starts going out and pulling in tools, but that doesn't mean it's the end all. Yeah. So the next thing is you need to let the bots in. This is an interesting byproduct of the world that we're living in right now. But there are evil bots and then there are good bots. And unfortunately, if you put up barriers to bots, the evil bots will bypass them anyway, and the good bots are going to go not to your site. So while bots were considered bad, except for Googlebot and Bingbot, in the past, now bots are generally something you want to welcome to your website. So how do you help the bots read your site? Structured text with headings. Bottom line up front, there's a new standard called an LLMs.txt, which will tell the bots what the content is on your site without all of the extra HTML and prettiness in a way that makes it easier for them to read. It's still new. It's not fully adopted by everyone, but it can't hurt. And then tools like Cloudflare, by default, Cloudflare is a tool that your IT department probably set up to help make your website faster, or your web developer set up to help make your website faster. Cloudflare, by default, will block LLMs from accessing your site, which is absolutely the wrong thing that you want, but they're trying to protect copyright holders, not help marketers. So WordFence is another tool you'll find on a lot of websites. You need to make sure that's not blocking these AI tools from being able to read your site. And then there's the old standard of robots.txt that needs to be configured correctly as well. Because ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini will honor these things. The evil bots, not so much. You're still going to get spam form fills. All right, so optimizing your site for AI is nothing more than good SEO with a couple of extra steps and a couple things to keep in mind when it comes to positioning. The last thing I want to cover is, I kind of lied and glossed over a point here. When the search bot is reading your site, it's not just reading your site, it's actually reading a whole bunch of sites on the internet. And if your brand's not on other sites on the internet, you're probably not going to get recommended. So it is important that your brand be on these other websites. So how do you do that? And the answer is you become remarkable. And I like this word because if you look at its literal definition, it means worthy of being remarked on. If your brand, if your product, if your service, if your content that talks about your positioning is worthy of being remarked on, it will be mentioned and it will be linked to online, which will drive up your organic search results, and it will drive up the likelihood that the additional content that the AI pulls into the context window, we get to use fancy words now, includes your brand name. So how do you become remarkable? Number one thing you can do, especially if you're a local business, is provide a stellar experience and get reviews. Because you can bet the AI is going to search the review sites before it makes a recommendation. You can offer free tools and free utility. People talk about free. You can offer proprietary data if you're more like on the B2B side. Causes, sponsorships, get your brand name linked to something else, especially if that's relevant to your brand positioning, do that. You can host events or participate in events that are tied to your unique positioning. Again, if I provide a particular product or service to police departments, if my brand is all over the police department events, I don't know what events they hold, I'm sure there's a conference of police departments, then my brand will be associated with that topic, with that idea, with that point in vector space. And then finally, content. I put this at the bottom because content today in 2026 is only as good as its distribution. Writing blog after blog after blog on your website doesn't do as much today as it did in the past, simply because chances are it's some kind of how-to or some kind of educational content that the AI is simply going to scrape the value out of and present to the user, either in an AI overview or in a ChatGPT window. So your focus isn't as much there. So the myth is you get mentions on AI by spamming Reddit, Quora and other communities. And this is, again, an area of snake oil. These AI engines used to pull in, or still do to some extent, pull in certain sites way more than they should. Reddit and Quora being two of those. This is a hack. It might work today, but it's not going to work 6 months from now. Don't invest in things that only work for 6 months. It's not worth it. Instead, provide value. Be remarkable. So in summary, own your position. Be distinct. Know where you are in that 1,536 dimensional space that they're operating in. And own it. Communicate it clearly. Follow SEO best practices, plus a couple extra little things so bots can read your site. And be remarkable. If you do these three things, you will be recommended by AI. Oh, I can go back to that. Somebody wanted a photo. All right. With that, here's how you can connect with me, the LinkedIn in the middle. My startup is Path 3, and we're at the point that we're in market and bringing on customers, but we take the idea of B2B advertising, and that's a relatively complex space, and we make it simple. I tried to do the same for AI today. I hope I did that. And then finally, if you want the slides, you can get those with the QR code on the left. You can opt in or out to receiving further messaging, so don't feel like you're going to automatically get spammed if you fill out that form. And we don't have a ton of time for questions, but we might be able to take one, or do we need to wrap up?
Sure.
Two questions, really. One, there's been anecdotal evidence of kind of a cultural bias on AI, specifically, like we mentioned, the links that they gave me are wrong. Like, I have to go, they gave me an Amazon link and it's a 404 error. The page doesn't exist. So then I have to use Amazon to go find the darn thing that it recommended to me. But things like that, we're eating rocks. People have extra fingers on their hands. How do, in a B2B sense, do we overcome that mistrust bias for our potential customers for that? And then the second question was, is everything going to change when AI starts writing AI?
Things are going to get better, and they have gotten better, right? So we see that incremental improvement month over month, and unfortunately, what's left is that a lot of people in market today have a huge mistrust because they think back to eating rocks. Even today, those mistakes of Amazon links happen a fair amount, but mistakes of other hallucinations are fewer and further between. It's not a good search engine, and it never will be because it doesn't operate that way. So if that link exactly right doesn't appear in the context window, it can't spit it back out again. It doesn't store things that way. It stores it as like fuzzy ideas. So to address your question, the key is specificity. So the more consistent and specific you are in how you talk about your products and services, the better it will be encoded correctly, and the more likely it will come back out the LLM correct. But the trust issue isn't, that just takes time. Time for one more? Sorry. I told you I had too much content.
So speaking of reviews, I work mostly with local businesses and local SEO capacity, and obviously reviews have always been important, but I would say that the context of reviews has become more and more important, as opposed to getting hundreds of reviews. It's more the context within those reviews, the responses within the reviews. Do you have any advice or feedback in terms of, one platform over another? I mean, obviously Google has always been kind of the gold standard in terms of local businesses, but any feedback or thoughts on that piece?
it's a moving target, so I'll start there. But I would focus on where you end up if you run a web search for reviews for your product or service or location, right? So if you run a web search, especially outside of Google, right? Because not everybody's going to be using Google's index, but run a web search on like Bing or another search engine and see what comes up as review sites. I don't have hard and fast data to prove that, but logically, that's how you would find where the LLMs are going to be pulling their reviews from. They're going to be doing that same search to go figure out where to go get it. So that would be my suggestion. But you're right, context is key, because a review that just says they're awesome, that's a one-dimensional review, right? So we want the multi-dimensional review that gets into why. I think that's a wrap.
Oh, we have one more question from online. When people click through AI overview in Google or other search engines, is this considered an AI inquiry or search?
That is a $1 million question, and actually Google hasn't answered it yet in their own documentation of their brand new feature of the AI channel grouping. So I'll let you know when I know.
One more.
I do a decent bit of blog content, and I resonated with the piece of AI is just going to like pull the educational content from the blog and use that. Would you say that blogs are on their way out, or is there a different strategy to approach blogs so that AI isn't just taking the content we're creating and reusing that?
So blogging still has one place in the context of this conversation, and that is it's going to frame the buying decision. So if you're operating especially in a niche market, you have the opportunity to be a thought leader in that niche market and say, this is how you choose the best refrigerator for a family of 5 in this case, right? That content will be pulled into the context window. So then the AI will use that content to make a decision about what the best refrigerator is, and then spit back out your product. So if you're in a niche market and can own some of that voice and authority, absolutely, blogging still has a place here. Otherwise, it switches over to you being responsible for getting that content in front of your audience at the right time. And so in the context of email marketing or social media marketing or other places like that, there's still a place for blog content. It's not in a discovery way. It is in a nurturing and education and framing that buying decision proactively with your audience and building an audience over time. Great question, though.
All right, let's hear it for Steve Robinson, everybody. Thanks again to all of you for coming out. That's a wrap up for today. Make sure you look out for the blog recap. Follow us on social. Go like all the posts related to this and future upcoming events. We'll see you next month, June 17th. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.